Hello everybody, it is currently Wednesday, March 30th, 2022, and it's about 10 a.m. and I wanted to make a quick video talking about sort of my initial tests using the Sony alpha mount 55 to 300 millimeter lens. And I just want to start off by saying that bird photography is very tough, and I think that's kind of why I'm drawn to it right now. I've kind of been in a rut with regards to photography for a little bit, and so I'm looking for ways to challenge myself, and bird photography is very challenging. For one, you only get like a split second to get the shot. I'm looking out the window, I see a bird, I try and take a picture, and oftentimes by the time I get to the window, get my camera, get it turned on, get the camera up to my eye, the bird is gone, right? Good luck trying to catch it in flight. So it's not easy. It's not easy. This morning I saw two woodpeckers. I woke up to the sound of two different woodpecker sounds. I only saw one out the window. It was a hairy woodpecker. But yeah, by the time I got to the window, it got kind of spooked, flew to a different branch, and when I grabbed my camera, it had flown away. And then a little bit after that, I saw I think it was a red-bellied woodpecker. It was a male with a bright red head, and yeah, I was so excited. I went to go grab my camera, but in that time, funnily enough, there was a squirrel in the same tree, and the squirrel chased it away. So yeah, it's very tough getting these shots. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. The thing that I did want to say is that if you're like me, you'll see pictures by Mark Smith or Stefano Iannero or Tony and Chelsea Northrup. You look at their bird pictures and you're just like wowed, and it inspires you to give it a shot. So then you go out and you try and take some pictures, and you look at the pictures and you're like, wow, this looks like crap. and it's very deflating. And so the thing that I want to remind everybody is that all of these guys, they edit their pictures. There's no real shame in doing that, right? And you'd be surprised at how your pictures can go from looking kind of crappy to being somewhat exciting. I mean, those guys have the benefit of experience. They have the benefit of location and very expensive specialized equipment, all of those things, right? Talent as well. So it's not like you're gonna get those kind of shots right away, but you'd be surprised at what you can get. But you do have to do some editing, because the pros, they do it too. In fact, they all have videos showing them doing editing. I know I've watched Mark Smith show the Topaz Labs AI denoise app. He does that to reduce noise in his high ISO pictures. I've watched some of Stefano Iannero's photoshopping videos, right? So anyway, just bear that in mind. Okay, enough rambling. Let's go on and look at the pictures, okay? The first picture here is a European starling. I'm going to show you, wherever possible, pictures straight out of camera, and then the edits that I put on top of them. And then you can see in the lower right corner the shooting situation. So yeah, this is a European starling, kind of a blah picture. This was just out my window here at 300 millimeters, and then here it is with a little bit of editing to kind of lift the shadow so you can see the details of that starling. This next picture is a mockingbird, and it looks very low contrast because I shot this through the window, and that's one of the things you'll run into with bird photography from your house, is that you're just rushing to get a shot before the bird flies away, and sometimes that means shooting through the window. And so that's what it looks like straight out of camera. And then this is what it looks like when you do a little bit of editing, primarily sort of dehazing and adding some contrast and lifting the shadows a bit. So looks pretty decent. This here is, I believe, also a mockingbird, but shot from below. Again, a little bit underexposed, so I went ahead and pulled up the shadows a little bit. Wherever possible, I also try and do a little bit of local area adjustments by using a mask on the subject, which is, the bird, and just sort of lifting that a little bit more, so it stands out a little bit more relative to the background. So this is a picture of a robin that I shot. It was quite far away, and this is straight at camera. I thought it looked good enough that I didn't do any editing. This is a shot of a turkey vulture that I was very lucky to catch, sort of perched on a nearby tree. Usually I see these soaring pretty high in the sky. So very lucky that one chose to land on a nearby tree. And here it is, just sort of lifting the shadows a little bit again. Now the next series of photos are of a squirrel on my deck. So it's not super far away. So that's nice. And you will notice that I used a flash. And it might seem silly to use a flash in broad daylight, but if you see pros do bird photography, they oftentimes will have a flash, and you can reach quite a distance with that. Now, I wouldn't put a flash on like a 600mm lens, but for a 300mm lens, the pictures that you're taking, you could probably still reach with the flash. And all it does is it sort of fills in the shadow a little bit, so you don't have to go and do local area sort of masking and lifting the shadows on just the subject later on in post, because you are throwing a little bit of light on your subject. And so that's kind of what I did on the squirrel. You'll probably have to shoot with full power or half power, especially if you're using high shutter speeds like this. Like this one I shot at 1/1000th of a second, which means that the flash has to be on high speed sync, right? Which typically further decreases the power of your flash. But it does make a difference, and it does sort of lift things up a little bit. And these are all straight out of camera. I didn't do any editing. I also highly recommend that you put the camera on a sort of either a low or high burst mode, so you can fire off a ton of shots. The thing about wildlife photography is that it's a game of numbers. That's something that sort of new photographers don't realize. It's a game of numbers. You shoot a bunch of pictures and you hope that one of them is sharp. It's not just like you take one picture and then have that picture be good. All right, so this picture is a picture of a robin. I took a picture of this guy on a walk, so I was outside of the house for this one. And you can see that the flash, I didn't use the flash on this guy. For this next picture, and that was straight out of camera. And then for this picture, I think it's the same, yeah, it's the same robin. I shot it with the flash on. Okay, so you can see that it looks a little bit different. Allows you to decrease the ISO a little bit because you do throw a little bit of light. Now the bird is very close to the quote-unquote background, namely the grass, and so any light that you throw with the flash will hit the subject and the background, so it doesn't make a huge difference there to make the subject stand out. All it does in this case is kind of decrease the ISO a bit. But for a bird on a branch, for example, and the background is the sky is much farther away, so your flash is only going to hit your subject or the bird. That's where it sort of makes a bigger difference. But anyway, Yeah, that's the robin. Both those pictures were straight out of camera. This is a picture of a mourning dove on a power line. It was way too far away, so I didn't bother with a flash for this one. And here it is with the shadow lifted. And you can see that it captured quite a good amount of detail there, despite being at 300 millimeters. Here's a picture of a robin, and that was a fair bit closer, and it looked a little bit desaturated, so I lifted the colors a little bit with the saturation. Here it is again, same robin, this time with the flash. Okay, again, similar sort of deal. It's very close to the background, so it's not going to make a huge difference in terms of making the robin stand out, but it does decrease the ISO a little bit by throwing a little bit of light. And then here it is, the picture again with a little bit of saturation turned up. So next here is a picture of a sparrow, house sparrow. You'll see that I shot it with the flash on. Now, unfortunately, because there are branches in front of the sparrow, those branches are going to be preferentially lit up by the flash instead of the subject or the bird. But you know, it was in a bunch of branches and it was kind of dark, so I really wanted to get some light in there. And so this is the picture with a little bit of editing, lifting a shadow, and also doing some local area masking to bring out the bird specifically. Here is another picture of that same sparrow, same sort of deal. You can see it's quite dark, but here it is with a little bit of editing to kind of lift up the shadows. And then a different sparrow here. Again, I shot it with the flash here, and this one looked pretty good, so minimal editing just to lift up the shadows a little bit more. All right, so for the next few shots here of the flying vultures, I wanted to test my skill at doing bird in flight shots. Now, these are hardly inspiring photos, but you know, vultures are fairly slow flying, though they tend to be very far away. So I thought I would practice with these vulture shots. For this first shot, I think I used manual focus on all of these because I had some trouble with autofocus hunting through the entire range, which is way too slow. Like, you'll miss the bird. And so the first shot I did manual focus, and you can see it's still not very good. I'm not very good at nailing that manual focus, though I think some of that is the lens. It's just not a very good manual focus lens. The second picture, again, you can see that I didn't quite nail the focus. For this third picture, again, it looks a little bit better, but again, if you look in close, it's not perfectly sharp. For this final photo, believe it or not, I actually did use the autofocus, and thankfully I was able to nab autofocus on this. But if you look in close, the autofocus actually did a better job than me in this particular shot. All right, so for the next few pictures, here I just shot pictures of my cat at home. I wanted to test the minimum focus distance. So here it is. It's quite far. I think it's 4.5 feet. I would say it feels like it's almost about 2 meters. So you have to be more than the length of a human man. For this second shot, you know, I tried to get nice and close, but you'll see that I missed focus there. I got focus on her tongue instead of her eyes. And then finally, for this shot, I managed to nail focus a bit better. All right, so that's it. That's it for this video. And I'm going to keep playing with this lens, and we'll see what happens. All right, see you in the next one.